All right, everybody. I want to get on here and do a quick video, I guess. So I had a thought. It's not ever good usually. But mail. Mail is going to be the topic of today's video. Excuse me. So mail, mail when you're in prison is a very, very important topic. It's a very important thing. It can be a lot of different things. It can be receipts for deposits. If you've had someone send you some money, you've been fortunate in that respect. It can be cards and letters, certainly from family or friends or what have you. It can be bad news. It can be, receipt for maybe a garnishment or something that they've taken out of your account, out of your inmate account while you're in prison. And you have another topic. I'll talk about that here soon, but it's legal mail, and that is something that usually is bad, honestly. So I want to talk about mail overall and how that works and what that means, I guess, for a prisoner. So, while you're in prison, you have certainly a right to get your mail and to send certain things out. There's some and there's limits on what you can receive and what you can send out. Every state or department or agency is going to have typically their own rules about how that works and what you can receive, what you can send out, the types of images or imagery or what have you that can be on a package or in a letter or in a card. They also have rules about what you can receive in. So those are going to be defined by the policy and the agency. But mail is certainly a good thing. The way that it worked, the prisons that I was at typically is the guards would hand the mail out usually toward the end of the night, toward count time at night. So the final count before lights were turned out or the day was secured, you'd have your mail call, if you will. At the one prison that I was at Green River, you had cells. Everyone was in a cell. So you had a door. You had two inmates in a cell, and then you had the guard that was out in the common area, the main area at their desk. They would get the mail from the administration building at some point during the day, either when they came in for the shift or however that worked, and then they would pass it out usually at night. And the way they would do it is they would walk around and they'd have the mail. And as they did their count, they would do their count you, your ID, or however if it was an ID count or a standing count or however it worked. But a lot of times they would come back around again after that count was done, before the count was open. You were able to come back out of your room or your cell, and they would put mail underneath the door. You heard that sound. You'd see them either stop in front of your door and hunch down, bend down, and put something underneath the door. And you'd hear that, several cells away. You'd hear it sliding across the floor, or they keep walking. And if they kept walking, that was a bad day. So, you look forward to it. People didn't really want to, admit to it, I guess, that they looked forward to mail. But certainly having letters from girlfriends, wives, family members, moms, kids, those kinds of things are something that are important to prisoners, and they want to get those things. As far as to mail things out, and they're typically, I want to jump back to this, there typically is, it seems like there's kind of a delay between the time that someone sends you something, the time that the Postal Service should be delivering whatever it may be, and then the time that you get it actually in prison. So that's one, I guess, problem. There's times that I can recall things taking a week to get, 76 miles or so, and that's not really, rational or logical to think that it took a week from the time that it was mailed out to the time that it got to you. Possible, I guess, but the prison mail system is notoriously unreliable and it's subject to, being gone through, certainly by people in the mailroom. I'd like to think they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't pull things, or things don't get lost, drop behind desks, or the Postal Service doesn't deliver it right, and it takes time for it to get to the actual place where it's going, but it does happen. As far as sending stuff out, you had stamps. Stamps were common in prison, and you could get those pretty readily, whether it was going to the canteen and buying them, or was using them as bartering and that kind of thing. That did happen. But if you were indigent, if you were judged by the state, or this is, again, Kentucky, I'm talking about Kentucky prisons, but if you were judged as indigent, you got X amount of stationery, so that included envelopes and stamps every month with your laundry issue. So you could have, I think, 3 or 4 letters or so if you were indigent, but there really wasn't really a practical reason to not, if you needed a stamp, someone would give you a stamp, to mail something out, whether it was a letter or a card or whatever it would be. But you could mail things out, and they did the postage. If it was over, they would send it back, and they would say return for incomplete post. You had to add more to it. So there's a lot of things that inmates send out, and it doesn't really sound that logical, but it does happen. You have a lot of inmates that do crafts, and Kentucky does allow, or did allow. This is speaking from when I was in custody 5 years ago. They did allow inmates to do have a certain amount of craft supplies, and they would take those supplies, make something, and then send it out to family or friends or whoever. There's restrictions about that and how that has to work. You also had different prisons. You had packages that could come in. Your family could either with a contractor that the Department of Corrections contracted with directly. It had to come from that contractor, whether it was a TV or whatever it may be. They would get that, bundle those up, wait about a week or so to get X amount of those kinds of things in, and they would disperse them. Usually the same day, call you up to the building. You'd get your TV, get your CD player, your whatever it would be. That all came through the mail system, like UPS or something. They drop it off. And then you have legal mail, and legal mail was something that was kind of separate and apart from the regular USPS, family, friends, that kind of stuff. As a general rule, anything that comes to the prison is going to be opened. It's going to be subject to being read, and it can be copied. And as a legal aid, I saw that. I saw people that wrote letters back and forth to people. They were, it was pretty obvious from reading it that they were engaging in a conspiracy. They were involved in conspiring to smuggle different things into the prison or have a drop point for contraband. And they would communicate by letters. Sometimes it was by phone calls. Those are recorded and monitored as well. They say that, and they mean that. They really are. But certainly if you're communicating by mail and you're putting those things in there, even if it's code, it doesn't have to be, I'm going to meet you at the interstate at 5 o'clock to pick up the dope. It doesn't have to be that. They have officers that are specially trained. Not to say they're the greatest in the world, because they're not, but every now and then, even a broke clock's right twice a day. So every now and then they do get it right, and they are able to intercept something that shows evidence of something, and they follow it from there. And they can investigate. They can do the things that the police agencies do out in society. So everything is subject to being open and subject to being inspected. There was a big issue a few times I can recall about Suboxone being smuggled into the prison by stamps. People would place the Suboxone is somewhat like a narcotic. It's a drug, and you can it comes in the form of like a blotter strip. You can put it underneath stamps or underneath an envelope, seal, and get it into a prison that way. And that did happen. People did get in trouble for that, and I was the legal aid for those cases. Usually it wasn't prosecuted outside as far as the state police or having mail charges or federal even state charges brought with that, because it brings attention on the prison's issue, and they generally don't want to do that. See, would that be an issue if they admitted they have a problem with things coming in the mail? So legal mail is something that's confidential by case law, by statute, by administrative policy. So they can't open that mail before you get it. They are allowed to open it, and what they're looking for generally is contraband, anything loose, any kind of, bags with any kind of drugs or contraband in there. Believe it or not, some people get the stationery from an attorney. They will recreate that or even use that envelope from a lawyer's office, send it into the prison. They'll have contraband in that envelope, believing that it won't be searched at all. That's not true. And they'll try to smuggle in, whatever it may be that way. And it doesn't always get caught, but it does happen. And it's illegal, certainly. It's not something you should be doing while you're in prison because you've broken the law. But Legal mail is protected. It's privileged. Generally, when they open the mail, they open it in front of you, and they just kind of open it up to make sure nothing falls out. They don't really generally read it unless there's a pattern or there's some things they have to do in order to do that. But in general, legal mail is privileged and confidential, and they can't just read it. It can contain a lot of information the state could use to you could see where that would be an issue, obviously. So legal mail it includes things like Social Security, any kind of government agencies, the Veterans Administration. People do get some of their pensions and disability and those kinds of things while they're in custody. Anything from driver's license or county clerk's offices or DMVs or BMVs, whatever it may be. Obviously, mail from courts and from lawyers, law firms. And so those are all privileged and confidential. They have to, the Fourth Amendment, the right to be free in your effects and your privacy, basically, free from search and seizure. That's one exception that kind of extends beyond the average inmate is your legal materials. You're allowed to keep X amount of that material once you get it. And some people, over the course of fighting a case or something, they do accumulate a large amount of paperwork. You can see how if you have 1,000, 2,000 people in a prison and they each have 3 cubic feet, 3 cubic yards of paperwork, that would be a fire hazard and a problem. So they do limit that. I believe it's 2 cubic feet they limit you to having, which is a pretty strong amount of paperwork to have. But people get that and they have more than that. You have to send some of that home if they come in and really get up on an inspection and take and measure and see if you have more than that or not. But by and large, they generally leave that alone because they know that all that kind of goes together. You need to have it to do an appeal or an attack of your case, something like that. But mail is something people look forward to. It's something they enjoy, and it's something that you get a letter, a perfumed card, or a birthday card from your mom. It's something you look forward to, something that you need, and I think the Postal Service is probably at this point propped up by business, prisoners, and the military, because those are really the only people that use the mail for letters anymore. It's so easy to get online, do an email or do a text message or a video call or something like that. So communication has changed over the course of the recent years, and the mail isn't really relied upon as much as it used to be. But prisoners do a lot of mail, and sort of folks in the military. When I was getting out of prison, they had something that was akin to like an electronic mail type system. You had to pay for each page, and that was obviously a commercial contract the state has. So that kind of maybe has taken the place of some of those letters. It's almost like a live email type system. It is screened. Obviously, the emails that a prisoner would send out are monitored and can be recalled and used if anyone says anything silly or illegal. And that's about all I've got for tonight. So that's mail. And if you have any questions or comments about the mail and how it works, I'll try to find out or get back to you. And look forward to making more videos. Thanks.